Vintage hand knit sweaters, I think, are probably my most favorite thing to wear, as you can tell from a lot of the introductions of these series and what I'm wearing right now. This is another hand knit vintage sweater that I thrifted, so it is an original vintage, and I unfortunately also can't find a pattern for this one, so if you can find one, please link it for me because I love it, and I might have to at some point recreate this pattern for myself because I want it in a bunch of different colors. For those of you who have been here for a while, you'll know that while I enjoy many different fiber crafts, knitting is really my mainstay. It's the one that I enjoy doing the most. It's what I always pick up whenever I have a moment of downtime or I want to relax and unwind from the day. I love vintage knitting and any kind of historic knitting. What got me back into the knitting bug was actually Victorian era knitting, and I am still working on projects for that, so stick around if you want to see that. And I'm also looking to do fiber crafts some earlier, but what's most relevant for this video right now is that quite a long time ago I found a pattern for a ski sweater from the 1950s that I loved so much. I decided that for Craftmas I was going to knit the entire sweater set, so not just the sweater itself, but the mittens and the little bonnet. And I want to try out that whole outfit in an actual snowy condition. I don't think I'm gonna go skiing in it. I haven't been skiing in decades at this point, and that would be a terrible idea, but we'll at least go outside in the snow. I'll be using Knit Picks yarn, and I'm going to be using Knit Picks Swish, just because of the ease of care. I plan to wear this outside in the snow, and it might get wet because I'm probably going to be falling over with what I'm going to be trying in this outfit, or at least what I'm planning to try in this outfit. Now, I did plan ahead for many months knowing that Craftmas was something I wanted to do this year, so I cast on for this project and I started working on this project in like my spare bits of time a while ago, but it is still quite ambitious to finish a sweater, mittens, and a bonnet. I have been knitting on this for a long time, so what you'll see is work and footage from me from not just, the past few weeks, but from a long time out. But it is also kind of cutting it close with being able to finish it. So this is a little bit also a race against the clock. With a goal in mind of knitting a 1950s ski sweater today, let us get into the weeds of it. Oh, but first, I missed a candle already of my 12 candles. Let's do that first before we dive into anything else, so you can see what the candle is and what the scent is for today, and then I'll get right to knitting this sweater. Today is Craftmas day 9 already? Wow. And we have a lavender, such a classic scent for a candle, and one that I always find super relaxing. At this point, I'm not lighting all of my candles all together anymore just because the smells all blend to become overwhelming. But I think when I'm working on my project today, I'm definitely going to be lighting this and enjoying it. Oh wow, it already smells so good, and I haven't even lit it yet, just from opening the candle. We are going to be starting with the front panel of this sweater. I've already knit the ribbing. I think it's about 3 inches. I'm going to be starting by knitting the front panel of this sweater, and I've already finished the bottom ribbing, and I'm going to be making the second women's size. Even though it says 3.5 inches, I just wanted to keep it at 3 inches. And now I'm going to be starting the first color work bit, which starts with red diamonds at the bottom here, and then moves into white dots, or like the 4 cross kind of looking pattern work. This is all worked flat in pieces, so I'm going to be doing some flat color work. One thing that was asked in my mirror knitting or backwards knitting episode of Craftmas is if it's possible to do flat work color work with this technique, and I've been trying it out and it's been working pretty okay. I'm still kind of working on my tension when I'm doing my knit back rows, but the other way that I found that this was super beneficial was, let me see if I can make sure this doesn't fall off my stitches. When I started my first row of color work, I had my blue yarn on this side, and the first row of color work was just the red. If I worked the way that I usually do from right to left to do that knit row, then I would have the next row where I needed to do blue and red. My blue yarn would be on the right side of my work, and my red yarn would be on the left side of my work over here, and I'd have to do some weaving in of ends to get the blue back over. So what I did instead is, for my first row of red, I knit instead backwards, or the mirror way of left to right, so that I then had my working red yarn on this side and blue yarn on this side, and I have no more extra ends to weave in, which worked out pretty well. I also have a little bit of a discussion I think that we need to have when I get to the white and blue color work section on this sweater. So let me keep on knitting and then I will see you in just a second once I get there. I just finished the first row of the white color work, and now I'm going to try to explain the dilemma of this pattern design to you. So we have 3 rows of white color work, then we have 3 rows of just blue, and at the end of those 3 rows, my working blue yarn is now at the left side of my piece. However, the working white yarn is at the right side of my piece. So the next row, I have to do color work with blue and white, and I have to somehow get this string over to this side to work exactly in the pattern. What I would do is cut this off, move it over, because you can't pull the tension like that across the entire piece. What would be ideal is if I could just pull this up to the next bit of color work, because pulling it up on the side is a lot better tension-wise rather than pulling it across the entire work. I do have a little bit of a confession to make. I have already knit the entire back panel, so let me show you how that looks. So here is the back panel with all of the color work done. But as you can see, when I turn it over, you have so many ends that drag across the entire piece. These are all still going to be cut. I just didn't cut them as I was knitting, and then I have to weave in all of these different ends. So frustrating. But I did want to follow exactly the original pattern as written. Now I have a few options after that experience with the back panel to make the front panel a little bit easier. One is, instead of knitting just 3 rounds between the color work little white dots, I knit 4. Because now if I knit the 4th round between them, this blue yarn will move over to this side of my work. I can just pull the white yarn up, and then I can continue working the other way with them together without having to weave in any ends or do anything like that. I don't want to do that. I wish I would have thought of that, but I don't want to do that now because I've already worked the back panel with 3 blue stitches between each pattern repeat. So now if I make it 4 rows, it's going to distort between the front and the back panel. So what I was thinking of doing instead is joining in a new ball of white yarn on this side. And so every other color repeat, I pull the yarn up on the sides rather than every color repeat. And that way I won't have to do any of the weaving in of the ends. I just have to be a little bit careful on the tension because I will be pulling it quite a bit further than if I just did it on every color work repeat. So I'm going to continue knitting, but this time I'm just going to join in a new ball of white yarn and pulling up the yarn on the side as I keep on working on my color work. Well, it made sense in my head when I first planned it, but we're at a bit of a problem spot in that both of my white yarns are now on the same side. And I was expecting that they would be on opposite sides, but when I walked through this again, I realized that I made a mistake in thinking that they would end up in opposite sides. My brain's a bit foggy, so I haven't been able to think through this very clearly. I'm trying to think of maybe another way that I could approach this. And honestly, I don't know how to do this in a less having to weave in the ends way. It feels like maybe what I can do at this point is join in another ball of blue yarn, but then I'm working with 2 balls of blue yarn and 2 balls of white yarn all at the same time, rather than just one of each. So it kind of seems like, do I want to have an easier time while I'm knitting it up and then spend a long time weaving in ends? Or do I want to have a harder time while knitting it up and then maybe have to weave in less ends? Well, I want to do something different from how I did the back panel, so what I'm going to do now is join in another blue yarn and knit back a different way so that I then have, maybe the blue yarn will be the one that switches. I don't know. This is poorly thought out, and if I would do it all over again, I would just add an extra blue row between the color work white rows. So if you want to try this pattern, I highly recommend doing that instead, because this is just too complicated for my brain at the moment. Okay, the front piece has been knit for 1.5 inches shorter than the back piece. And now it's time to do the next part of the pattern, which is the red triangles, or diamonds, I guess, that'll match the triangles down here, which acts as the border for the person who is skiing. So I'm onto the red border and then the white skier. So I think I'm actually going to cut off my extra white and blue yarns just so I'm not struggling with so many balls of yarn at once. So if you can see the back of this, I don't have an excessive amount of ends to weave in, at least definitely nothing compared to the front. I mean, look at how much I still have to weave in on the front. All of these and all of that I tied together. So it's nowhere near close. I just didn't do the pulls up on the side of the whites very well. I left a lot of extra room just in case, like I didn't want any puckering, but it's not great. So long story short, wouldn't really recommend what I tried. If you're going to do this pattern, I would either add another row of blue or remove a row of white on each pattern repeat, whatever you think looks best. Honestly, also at this point, I don't know how far I'm going to get on this sweater before I share it with you all as part of Craftmas, but that's okay. I mean, I don't have to have it fully finished for us to get a bit of the effect, and I still have a really nice surprise, I hope, for you all. I'm so excited about it, so I can show that to you with the next video even, and hopefully I have the time then to finish it in the next one. So yeah, we'll see how far we get today, and I will show you what my progress is before I post this video, and then I will update you hopefully with a more finished product and an extra surprise next time. Good morning. You might have seen that I made some progress on the front piece, but what you might not have seen is that I have also started working on the colorwork section for the skier. I am almost done with the skier's skis. I'm planning on doing a little bit more work on the front piece today, but I will say this is going to be my first time ever where I'm filming and recording something, editing it, and then uploading it on the exact same day. I'm gonna see if before I post it, I can finish the front, and then maybe I can sew the front to the back so you can see it as kind of like a vest piece. And then next time I will finish the sleeves and attach the sleeves. Although next time is literally 2 days from now, so I have 2 days to knit up sleeves. I don't know that I'm setting myself up for success, to be honest. Probably not. First though, I think I have to finish my coffee to get some energy in, because I literally just rolled out of bed, and maybe break my fast and have a little bit of food. And I can't believe I actually made it. I finished the front and back panel of the sweater today, and I have sewed it up at the shoulder seam so you can see a little bit of a mock representation of what the sweater is going to look like when it is done. I know that today's video was maybe a little bit hurried and chaotic, and I really apologize for that, but I hope that it was still somewhat interesting to see my process of knitting a sweater like this. I also messed up a bit of the pattern, and I didn't show that because I was working hard to fix it. But I think it turned out okay, but the tension is a little off. So I definitely want to wet finish it, or at least iron it and steam it so that it'll get better. I still need to do the 2 sleeves, and sew up the sides, weave in all the ends, put in the sleeves. I would like to do that before the next video because I have something that I think is pretty incredible, and let me just give you a little bit of a sneak peek. Yes, that is an original vintage knit of this sweater, and it just so happened to become available a week after I cast on and chose this project. To say that I was I honestly nearly fell out of my chair when I saw that, because it was so wild, that coincidence. And there's so many interesting things that I see when I look at the original vintage sweater that I want to discuss with you and compare when I look at how I knit this up, trying to follow the pattern, versus how someone from the time probably knit something like this up from the pattern. I will leave you with my sweater in its current state, where it's currently kind of a bib. And hopefully next time I can have it in a little bit more finished condition and we can compare it to an original vintage version of the exact same sweater. I'm so excited. Okay, thank you again so much for watching. Please feel free to subscribe if you want to continue getting updates on my vintage knitting, and I will see you all again very, very soon. Bye.